Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Pan Future Society podcast. Today is Friday, January 20th, 2017. Doing the show a day early this week just because right now is a good time slot to do it. I hope you are surviving today with some measure of sanity, possibly looking forward to your weekend, and moving forward. That's all we can do, and we can't undo anything in the past, so onward we go. And if I sound a little funky, the gunk invading my head last week is still resisting complete elimination, but the nice thing about doing a podcast is I can just stop recording whenever I need to cough or something. So hopefully it won't interfere with anything too much. And let's get on with our news of the moment. Your first item of news this week in a bit of materials science news. There's a material called Vantablack, V-A-N-T-A black. It is a material made of carbon nanotubes that was developed by UK technology company Surrey Nanosystems. This first popped up in the news around 2014. And people have been speculating about what it might be used for. This material is made by using catalyst particles no bigger than a nanometer, and they saturate it with a gas to grow carbon nanotubes. And there are billions of these nanotubes in each square centimeter of the material. This stuff absorbs 99.96% of the light that hits it. I will link to an article on the show notes here, and the very first photo is this shot of it's a bronze head sculpture next to another one that is covered in Vantablack, and it looks like somebody just blobbed ink over it in Photoshop or something. It is so dark. It removes all sense of three-dimensionality from whatever it's covering, as if it's been snipped out of reality. Now, this stuff is fairly fragile, so right now they're only able to use it in places where it's not going to get touched or smashed into or anything like that. So one of the places it has been used is in December of 2015, a European microsatellite was launched using this coating. And because of its qualities, this can be used in space to prevent unwanted light from interfering with instruments like star tracking devices and telescopes. They're also looking to coat base plates of Earth's observation satellites where it can be used to calibrate the satellite's cameras before they take a picture. They are looking to use it in infrared sensors and other places where you need to improve a signal-to-noise ratio, like in infrared imaging systems, like the ones used by firefighters to detect thermal signatures of fires or people trapped somewhere. So that is your materials science information. This Vantablack stuff is beginning to make its way into the real world. Now, it came from outer space. Alright, there was a little bit of spaciness in that last news bit, but now the Mars Curiosity rover is examining possible mud cracks. The Curiosity rover in recent weeks rolled over to a feature slab that they have named Old Soaker, which is a kind of a flat rock with a series of cracks in it that look like dried mud. Dried mud can be preserved in two ways, or can be seen in a couple of ways after much time has passed. The cracks in the mud get filled, and it can be filled with dust that kind of blows in and settles in, and it can be filled with mineral deposits that seep in after the mud has been buried for some time. Now, this feature on Mars has both sediments and mineral deposits, so this looks like a very compelling bit of evidence that there was a lot of water on Mars flowing at some time, at least enough to leave behind some mud that dried, cracked, and gave us this really cool formation to study. The region that the Curiosity rover is in right now is known as Mount Sharp, and it's been kind of climbing up a hill for a number of months. And in this area, this dried mud, basically fossilized mud, and other features that they've seen along the way indicates that this was an ancient lake bed area, possibly a site where a large lake would form and then dry and then reform again and then dry. Possibly not a very permanent feature. But there's other evidence observed in sandstone layers and mudstone layers preserving a pattern called cross-bedding, and this pattern can form where water is flowing more vigorously near the shore of a lake or from wind-blown sediment during a dry spell. So there you have it, the Mars Curiosity rover continuing to deliver the sciencey goodness. And that is your news this week. In the main segment this week, I wanted to continue with the themes for the year that I started a few shows ago. And this week I want to talk generally about science and understanding of science and misunderstanding of science. But this is something I expect to return to several times this year. In particular, this week, I want to talk about scientific consensus, what it is and why we should believe it, and a couple of other things will crop up in the lecture, if you will. So, on with the science. Post-truth is a term that has become the latest buzzword as we grapple with the how and the why of the last election season and the scourge of fake news. Understanding science and the scientific method can help us deal with that. It's become a point of discussion in the science and skeptic community that we can't just throw facts and experts at people who don't accept them. The Earth isn't flat, climate change is happening, vaccines don't cause autism, and GMOs are not only safe, but probably the only way we will avoid a global food crisis. However, no amount of citation of papers will convince people opposed to those things, and in fact is likely to entrench them more. I'm not sure how to deal with that, but people are talking about it, and I will share with you what I learn. One thing I think we can do is improve science education at a young age. Outside of youth, I hope that trying to show people why science works will at least offset the, quote, whatever I feel is truth, end quote, attitude permeating our culture. One of the things I think is damaging our progress is the rejection of scientific consensus and of actual experts on a given topic. For those most entrenched in anti-science beliefs and conspiracy theories, scientists are shills and always lie, studies are rigged, and the government is covering up the truth. This angle allows people to automatically reject anything that goes against their worldview. Anyone who opposes the conspiracy is part of the conspiracy. So this week, back to basics, back to fundamentals. What is scientific consensus and why should we accept it? The website The Logic of Science, logicofscience.com, recently posted a meme on their Facebook page with these words: "Many people think that a scientific consensus refers to a large group of scientists who all agree that something is true. In reality, a scientific consensus is a large body of scientific studies that all agree with and support each other. The agreement among scientists themselves is simply a byproduct of the consistent evidence." That right there is probably about the best definition of scientific consensus you will find. One significant thing about science that people need to understand that separates science from politics and religion is that personal opinion, bias, or a desire has nothing to do with, or should have nothing to do with, scientists are human after all, whether or not using the scientific method offers an accurate picture of something. Consensus is reached when many scientists have performed experiments, collected data, published work, and had that work properly peer-reviewed and replicated. That doesn't mean science-based conclusions can't change. They often do, but in light of newer evidence and testing that better explains something, not because of a political agenda or because someone's opinion says so. Consensus is built on a huge amount of evidence, and in most cases it would take a similarly huge amount of evidence to upend that consensus. Scientific consensus is the closest we can get to confirming something about objective reality, the reality that exists even if all humans vanished. In some cases, we're talking about thousands of published studies. Be aware of anyone who cherry-picks studies. Take in the big picture for yourself. If someone shows you 2 studies that show GMOs are harmful, how many of the total is that? 2 out of 4 or 2 out of several thousand? If you want to have a science-based outlook on life, you have to learn to accept consensus, even if it runs counter to a bias you have. And we all have them. Several years ago, I stopped calling myself liberal, and I've never been conservative. I'm not a moderate either. I'm a rationalist, exactly because of the need to accept scientific consensus. If you agree with the scientific consensus on climate change, you must also agree with the consensus on vaccines, GMO food, evolution, and any other topic. Science also works from a viewpoint of falsification. You can't really prove gravity exists in the way people think of proof, but you can clearly see the massive mountain of evidence supporting the idea. To overturn the theory of gravity, you would have to falsify it, that is, show an experiment in which gravity does not work as expected. Find a situation in which a dropped baseball floats away into space. Another aspect of science which is difficult for people to understand and accept is that sometimes we don't know. And it's okay to say you don't know. It's a state of discomfort for many people. Scientists will form hypotheses, ways of framing questions to further examine the world. It's fine to make guesses and suppositions, but it is unscientific and a mistake to fill any "I don't know" space with an assumption that you want to be true. If there is not yet consensus on a topic, you must withhold judgment until enough evidence is in. Marijuana is a good example. Recent medicinal use and legalization efforts have led many to tout weed as everything from totally harmless to being a cure for cancer, HIV, baldness, and just about everything else. If you look for a while, you can probably also find people saying weed causes all of the above. As far as the science goes, we don't know. Because laws have prevented much research, there isn't enough data to examine yet, and we don't know. I prefer to err with caution when I don't know, and for now I will go with established treatments recommended by my doctor for any ailments. Navigating the gap between science and politics is tricky, but I don't think it needs to be so hard. If we can get people to think more rationally with science-based outlooks, we might have a better chance. Something has changed in the last 20 years. We no longer believe experts who are actually experts, and we glom on to anyone who appears to have authority, real or manufactured, who either tells us what we want to hear or gives us oversimplified explanations. One thing I've learned over my life: everything is more complicated than we usually assume it to be. Politicians will say what they think you want to hear, but dig deeper and find out if their opinion is informed by fact or just pandering. Is someone telling you to fear some particular food? Does that person have an actual educated understanding of the topic? Science is different. Science doesn't need you to believe in it, and somewhere along the way we've failed to educate children on that subject. I hope this show has given you better insight into what it means when a large majority of scientists agree on something, why science works, and why there really are experts in topics is something I will return to frequently over the coming year. All right, that's your show for the week. Thank you, as always, for joining me here on the Pan Future Podcast. If you would like to get in touch, come to the website, panfuture.org. Look us up on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us in the iTunes, in the Stitcher, and there's a couple of other feeds out there. And we're on YouTube as well. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the YouTube link is, but it's on the website. So if YouTube is a preferred method for listening to various things, or if you know someone who's a YouTube junkie and you want to pass it along, you can find us there. All right. Be well, everyone, and I will talk to you again in the future.